More left sides than right sides.
No, that's the side that would have more accidents,
Yeah.
and so that part goes more.
That orange one over there is all sprint cars one championship. Early 30s was updated to the 40s and 50s with that nose, and then they restored it back to the 30s configuration.
Isn't that against the orange
That
blossom?
was an orange blossom special.
One of these days I gotta get my garage tidied up. It's the mad laboratory of perpetual motion. Ah, that's what you're talking about.
There's the zip gun.
Yeah, I went to a car show a few years ago up, was it Long Beach maybe? I think it was the first time that he had one of these out.
Yeah.
It was painted really nice, really nice.
Was that at the Moonlight Show?
No, remember what it was.
Well, who paid one? I talked to Rob years ago and asked him if he could make some. He said, yeah.
Well, I just love one of the exhibits at Peterson. Yeah, we went up there on the last day before it shut down.
Yeah.
Felt very, and of course we talked a lot about Rod, you know. I kind of felt like it was there, you know. I never got to meet the man.
I worked for 5 years, about 5 feet away from him.
And I worked for it for 2-3 years.
It sounded to me like you guys knew some good old-fashioned paste up and layout too.
Yeah.
I'm in the printing business. and,
I
and,
did Ruby was
Right,
on
sure,
a
sure.
light
See that zip
table,
gun? It's over there.
dropping out backgrounds, including spokes on motorcycles.
Wow.
Tedious.
yeah, I
Right on
did.
your eyes, actually.
I did that. Do you know what stripping is in the
Yeah.
graphic business? I was a stripper for 10 years,
Yeah.
and bent over a light table, and I attribute my back surgery to that. I think, you know.
I did paste up in production.
I don't know how many times I was shooting an artboard on a giant copy camera, and there's a chunk of type missing, and I'm walking around looking on the
Yeah,
floor,
look around
and I end up peeling it off the bottom.
Or you're at home and it's in the bag or something.
Yeah. A lot of times the sales reps would take the artboards and put them in the back of their car, come into the shop and bring it in for us to shoot. Gatley's the typer,
Yeah.
curling up like this, and sliding off. You know. I still remember the smell of a hot waxer.
We
You want
didn't use
to
hot
shoot
wax,
some
we
glue?
used, yeah,
Like
rubber cement.
yeah.
Wow. You have to take charge. Just take charge.
What are we doing?
Get going here.
Yeah,
I can do it.
because I didn't talk to you
Right.
actually.
I'd like to do a couple of shots of you with your car. So, what do you want to wear this or? And then
And
I'm
she
gonna
also,
shoot.
you were gone, but when we're going to try to keep the sedan we're going to keep the sedan out of the background when we're shooting the other cars.
Because everybody presumes my car's his car, so I
Right.
don't want to add to that.
Okay,
If
that's
we
fine.
can avoid that,
Yeah.
let's get too complicated.
Do you want to shoot it here and remove the roadster?
Hey, but wait, you cut her off, so.
So I need portrait shots with Suzanne with her car for her feature,
Okay.
and then I shoot the car individually.
Okay.
So if you want to sit on the running board or go change and do.
No, I'm.
Okay.
Do you want me to pull this
So
car out?
do you
you
want
have
to
room?
put it
bit, yeah.
inside or
I want
outside?
to shoot it inside.
Okay.
Because it's nice in there.
Yeah.
Just garage
So
shot.
if he backs out, there's.
Yeah.
I took my dick out.
Did she start laughing or?
Yeah, it was so funny. It's like that big.
Oh, shit.
You started it. This is cool.
Framing me to
This
say.
is a
It's
cool
only
hot
that
rod
big.
dog car.
Can.
Hold this. Can you hold this? That's cool.
Is that the...
My other shot?
No.
That was in the movie, you know Scott, the bad friend was in that movie. So there's a shot in that movie of
Nice.
Tom Cruise standing in front of that picture for about 5 minutes talking.
Really?
That's so cool.
Yeah. It's good from here. You know what? I didn't even, when I got up.
Dark.
Yeah, I didn't.
The print?
Yeah, it's
The
an
original
off
real
of
small.
off of a,
I'll get pictures of everything. Okay. Yeah. And then you know what was cool when you put your arm out on my car? Yeah. That was cool.
Like $1,000.
One hand on the steering wheel.
But it's like that big, like the monthly clock one I had. It's like that big.
Yeah, the persistence of memory is only like about 100.
this is perfect for those shoes, those Vans shoes, you know?
Oh, that was
Perfectly
great.
divided.
Ah, nice.
Like colors.
All right. Okay.
Okay, what do you want me to do?
I want you to sit with your car. Just do a few shots with your car. Where'd you put it? Oh,
Where do you want me to put it?
here.
Now, which way you want me to shoot?
I need to shoot it this way, this way, or over there. Yeah.
What if I put it in front of the mom?
You can do that. Okay. Come out here.
Yep.
Preparation time. When I had my first one, a buddy of mine he's probably 65 now. He collected damn near every single little book, you know, car magazine ever. And he's in his garage, he's got boxes of them. And when I came home from the hospital, the second day I was home, UPS man comes to the door, and this guy had UPS'd all of his little books to me. And so I laid there in bed for a month and read cover to cover every single one of those books.
He loaned them to you or gave them to you?
He loaned them to me. Yeah.
I got a
And-
bunch, but no.
And you know, I think there was only a couple of those out back then when I had the first one, but some of those, that's what reminded me of.
Well, I got two copies of Volume 1, Number 1 of Hot Rod magazine.
Well, I gotta tell you something, this is a rare privilege. It really truly is.
Just regretting it's so hot.
That's
They
okay.
come right in the middle of the heat spell.
Yeah, you know what, Anna and I talked yesterday, and I said, you know what, let's just put a lot of planning into it, let's just go ahead and do it.
Next
So
week's
okay.
probably gonna be really nice.
I know, right?
I called her up 2 days in advance and I said, look, it looks, weather says it's gonna be 180 here on Saturday, so you know, you're on your own. Well, pity the poor gal.
Yeah. It feels like having makeup on your face when it's this hot.
Yeah, and sunscreen.
We got a dossier. We got so much stuff.
It's all car related, see, that's a small part of my life.
Yep. Yep. Oh, are we? Okay. Wasn't sure.
No, we're good. What a big equal time, you know. She's a very wise and experienced woman as far as, you know. It wouldn't hurt your magazine to have a woman like that.
You know, it's one of the subjects of an upcoming column that I've been toying around with the idea that I started, which is women hot rodders. You know, I'm not talking about the Betty Page,
Yeah.
black hair with bangs and tattoos.
Yeah.
So,
I've known Betty Page. I've talked to her on the phone. She's good friends with Dave Stevens and kind of brought her to the public eye. She won't see anybody personally because she got a little fat. I've talked to her on the phone a few times.
she's been out of the public life for quite some time, but yeah. I wonder what she thought of that movie.
It was, I think she liked it because it was really toned down. I would imagine they can't wild life. She's religious now. Another one that's interesting was Willie St. Cyr. And I was very good friends with Artie Shaw. Artie Shaw used to screw those. And he's telling me that he hadn't seen her in about 30 years. He called her up. He said, "Hey, Lily, this is Artie." And she says, "Artie who?" "Artie Shaw." "No, it isn't." She says, "Yeah, it's Artie Shaw." She says, "No, I didn't Artie Shaw." "Yeah, it was Artie." She says, "No, I didn't." And he says to her, says, "Well, you got a little mole about 3 inches from your cunt." She says, "Hey, Artie, how you doing?" Artie says, "Well, what if I come over and see you?" And she says, "Well, I'm not seeing people anymore. I'm not in the public eye." She did the same thing. She got real fucking fat.
I would imagine if you're known for your glorious figure, it would be a letdown. So, I wish I had a whole cover-to-cover magazine to do this because there's just so much. The whole focus of this is.
But you read my book.
I read it.
Okay, good deal.
I read
Did you
it.
enjoy the book?
I loved it. For several reasons. I mean, my own curiosity. The way it was put together, even where the chapters were about certain things, because there are a lot of things, a lot of people nowadays in this custom culture, their perceptions are somewhat skewed. Well, I know Robert Williams, he used to work for Rock, that kind of thing, and which something I want to touch on a little bit. It's just the custom culture today anyway. But yeah, I enjoyed it very, very much.
Well, you asked me the questions to see if I can satisfy your needs.
Yeah, I kind of wanted to start at the beginning, and basically the main focus of this is you as a hot rodder. You know, hot rodders nowadays, it's a lot of different things to a lot of different people. But I just want to kind of get a sense of what role cars, hot rodding.
Okay, no, you got specific questions? You just want me to take off with this?
Well, you know what? I have specific questions, but I tend to, after I get about halfway through them, I end up closing the book. You know what I mean? But I just kind of want to start at the beginning. Like, let's say, as a child, your earliest perception of cars and hot rodding. I know that your father was involved in stock car racing, that sort of thing.
That's right.
But if you could just talk a little bit about your earliest perception.
Well, my father had a number of different stock cars in the early 50s. And I was drugged to half-mile dirt tracks, even in the 40s, to watch motorcycle racing and stock car racing in the South. My mother was from Indiana, Yankee, and my father was from the Deep South. But my mother and father met in Albuquerque, New Mexico, and I was born in Albuquerque, New Mexico. My dad was in charge of training glider pilots in the Second World War, in charge of the entire training program for glider pilots. And he was a real he-man type of guy. He was a amateur prize fighter and whatnot. Real handsome guy that cast in the Earl Flynn mold. So I was used to being around manly things like race cars. So at an early age, very early age, I was like fascinated with these box top shaped cars that ran on these dirt tracks. They were products of the early 30s. And they're not being able to perceive in my mind that these were actually passenger cars had a mystique to them. So by the time I'm 10, 11, 12, I have a fetish for these cars. I come to realize, looking at magazines on the stands, that there's a culture called hot rodding. Now, my father had a large drive-in restaurant. And these cars would frequent that drive-in restaurant. And I would go into tremors of excitement when I saw a hot rod. I mean, I would herniate with excitement. I would see an open-wheel Model A or a 32 Roadster. I'm obsessed with this thing. So I talked my father into buying me a 34 Ford 500 coupe in 1955. And in Alabama, if you're discreet, you could drive around on back roads if you're careful. My grandfather had a large farm, and I was already primed on driving tractors and farm implements. 34 Ford was no different. So I took the fenders off this coupe, made a hot rod out of it, and puttered around with it. My parents got divorced, moved out. That was 56. So I started Albuquerque at a much bigger hot rod city because it's closer to California. Drier weather, so car bodies lasted longer. So I immersed myself in the New Mexico car culture. Now in '55, I came out to Southern California State for 3 months from Manhattan. So I got to really see a lot of hot rods out here. My uncle lived in Van Nuys, and really got a first-hand view of California hot rod. So at that point, it was an obsession. It was just an obsession. Now, in my upbringing, I don't know it's in my upbringing, my character, but I never socially fit well in society. I failed grades, didn't have a lot of respect for sports, and I liked colorful things and ordered on the front. So it didn't take long, not having a father living in New Mexico, to fall in with the wrong crowd. Got involved early on with motorcycles. Got into Indian motorcycles. It was, American Indians and English Indians. I had both kinds of motorcycles. And I had a couple of really bad motorcycle wrecks, about 15 years old. So I thought it prudent to go back to the hot rods. I love the hot rods, and I can see it. I lost a number of friends that got killed on motorcycles. I can see my paps coming out. Really, really injudicious things on motorcycles. So I started assembling a Model T Roadster, Model A frame, Oldsmobile engine, a 39 Ford transmission. Halliburton couldn't change that whole modified. The 862 axle. And I had 36 Fords, 34 Fords, 40 Fords, 48 Fords, and a lot of stuff. I never got into customs. I had a great respect for them and appreciation for them. They weren't an adventurer's car to me. In later years, I kind of summed it up that hot rod is the first cousin to a race car. A custom car is for lounge lizards. A hot rod is forget about pussy. Forget about pussy. The girls hated hot rods. And a custom was to get pussy. Girls hated hot rods. In the 50s, they hated hot rods. They were uncomfortable, they were noisy, they broke down, they attracted the police when they get in, when they mess their hair up. They stopped everything about a hot rod. They attracted the wrong kind of guy. You know, it's just, but it was just, riding around in a hot rod roadster to me was like flying in a Sopwith Camel or something. You know, it's like this open situation. So I'd gotten in a lot of trouble and started taking drugs and whatnot in the late 50s. And I saw that my life was coming to nothing. I inherited a little bit of money from the family estate. So I said, well, I'm done with this hot rod business. I'm going to California to get an art education. This hot rod thing is dragging me down. I've got to mature, but make some money. So I had this really nice T Roadster when I was in, and I just gave it to a friend. Just gave it. Walked away. Plus tons and tons of car parts and Model T bodies and all enormous amount of stuff. This shit was just an anchor to me. And you know, in the 50s and early 60s, you could build a hot rod, spend $5 or $6, maybe $10,000 on it. $10,000 back then was a fortune. And you couldn't sell it for more than $1,200. Excuse me a second here. You couldn't even put this thing on a used car lot and make it off. It's just a sad situation. So, anyway, I moved to California and went to a junior college. And just, moved in '63. Kind of the irony is the car I bought to come out to California and was a '62 Ford 406 with a 4-speed tri-power, plus traction movement. So I was like kind of fooling myself. So went to Los Angeles City College, and then I, from there, I met Suzanne and got married, and went to Chenard's, took extension course in Chenard's Art Institute. Went out and got a job. First job was I was art director for Black Belt Magazine, the karate magazine, and then for 6 months they fired me, and I got a job as a container designer for Warehousing Corporation. This was during a psychedelic period in my life. It didn't take long to realize that I wasn't executive stock, and they fired me. Went back down to the unemployment agency and he said, well, nothing we have here for you, but you got one job nobody wanted. I says, what's that? He says, I'm looking for an art director for a Big Daddy Roth. He said, this was too dirty. They send people down here, it's too dirty and grimy. He said, give me the phone. I had met Roth in 1960. So, man, I'll tell you, my fucking fortune picked up. All of a sudden, I'm making a lot of money. I can come and go and dress any way I want. I'm a bohemian hot rod world. I'm not a religious or a superstitious person, but man, it seemed like divine providence that I ended up there. So, Dad looked at my portfolio and he says, you know, if I knew you existed, I'd have hunted you up. So I worked as his art director for 5 years and eventually went to business. So the thing is, while I'm working at Ross, I'm around these hot rodders. This thing starts coming back to me. I've got money, I'm comfortable. So I'm sitting next to Jim Jacobs all day, working on Choppers Magazine, and I says, hey Jake, you ever run across a 32 Roadster bike? Let me know. These guys were coming across incredible shit. Back in the 60s, you could do incredible stuff. I said, Jake, I'm looking for a 32 Ford Roadster. I don't want a cabriolet, and I don't want a coupe with tops on. Every morning I'd say that to him. So I come in one morning, he says, get your checkbook. I've got something for you, Seal Beach. And that night we went out and found that Roadster for $200. 1968. I bought that son of a bitch right there on the spot. It came with a body, a frame, a pink slip, a gas tank, a radiator, steering, and rear end, the original seat cushions, original grill shell and radiator. So, man, I didn't have that thing home a week, and I already had it transferred to DMV on non-op. I wanted it that bad.
I'm trying to monitor them, taking pictures in the garden.
Well, good luck, Suzanne.
Oh, Bob.
What?
The gardeners are loving it.
I bet they are.
That's what I've been in your grass for about 3 hours.
Where'd I leave off at?
Everything you got for $200,
Yeah.
and you dotted the I's and crossed the T's.
Yeah, so I just started picking up parts. The thing had me, just like heroin back on this thing. Now, let me explain something. During the Vietnam War, I'm working at Ross, and Ross no longer has any dealings with old production cars. Everything's a show car. He's wanting to get into choppers. And it really looks like hot rods roll. It really looks like a road. The LA Roadster Club existed, but it was starting to be old men, and there was no young people. The young people were either in college or the Vietnam War, and it was real unintellectual to have a hot rod. It was just outre, it was stupid. But I wanted a Deuce Roadster, you know. Fuck the world. Somewhere down the line, I was going to have my Deuce Roadster. So I got it, and I never would have thought it in a million years this thing would have picked up. After I bought the Roadster, I run across 2 other Deuce Roadsters for $200, and I bought a dash out of one that's in the Roadster. So I thought these things are, you know, they're always going to be here. So anyway, as time went by, people started getting interested in these things, and nostalgia came along. Now, this nostalgia thing that you take for granted did not come easy, and it came probably with 2 people. It came with 2 people. One was Jim Jacobs. You know what I'm talking about when I say Jacobs. Jim used to sit right next to me, doing page studies. Suzanne was in. Jake came in one day and he says, you know, I ran across this real old Oakland Roadster show car. When the first Oakland Roadster show, it's a Nick Camp Roadster. He didn't even know what it was. He had to find out. He says, the guy almost $11,000 for it. That was an enormous amount of money. I says, Jake, get the goddamn thing. Get it. And it was like, what would you want it for? It's an old out-of-fashion hot rod. I said, get the son of a bitch fuck fashion, get that car. So he bought it. And that started the resurgence of the old style hot rod right there. Okay. I started doing work for Hot Rod Magazine, doing that V8 poster and a couple of those center spreads. And that artwork of mine and Jake's interest in that old car was the two factors that got everyone back into old hot rods. And it's immodest of me to say that, but it's true.
Well, everything starts somewhere.
I started doing those pictures of junky. To do junky hot rods in those pictures was revolutionary. You know, it was just, it was flipped. It was like you're on acid or something. Look, you can see the mud on the side of the car. Like you can see tape unraveling on it, you know. So that started a whole deal. Artwork, all the drawers, everything. So Brucker started getting interested. Brucker had over 1,000 cars in his collection. He had one of the biggest car collections in the world, but not one of the finest. I don't think he had any Duesenbergs. He specialized in V16, V12, and V8 Cadillacs. Thing on that. But he started sensing about old hot rods. He's the first real big buyer, not Bruce Myers, but Jim Brucker. So he started picking up these old Westergaard cars and whatnot. So that's those three factors there is how this whole nostalgia thing came about. Now, I wanted to get that Roadster running, and when I had my T-Roadster back in Albuquerque, I spent 3 years working on it, and perfed out everything, and fucked off a lot of time, and my fiance walked out on me, and my life was going down the drain. I said, well, this dude's Roadster, I'm going to throw the son of a bitch together and get it running dependable and primer. This was unheard of. Now, of course there were primered cars before then. Of course there were. I mean, all my cars used to be primered, but you never let on that this wasn't in a progressive stage. To come out and predicate, now this son of a bitch is finished. Doesn't seem like much now, but in 79, 80, 81, 80, this was revolutionary. I would go on that Roadster to places and they would ask me to leave. Early times would ask me to leave. You know, this place would just park out on, you know, they'd run you off. Harvey's Broiler, get off the lot. Yeah. So, Pete Eastwood had a rolling chassis. He had a 32-3 coupe that he'd lost in a divorce, and the ex-wife's dad started fucking with the car and queered it. And somehow Eastwood got the car back, and it had the hoodoo on it. He didn't like it anymore. Too many Mickey Mouse sayings, like pop rivets and stuff in it, you know. Something it's like some evil thing had pissed on it or something. So he's going to park the car out. And he'd already gone coast to coast 4 times. He built it when he was 17. And he'd been in 4 very bad wrecks. Really bent that thing up terrible. But he had a real interesting suspension and framework on it. And it was rolling, and it had brakes. And I talked Pete Shapiris and Jim Jacobs, who did Pete and Jake's, to get the chassis for me, and I'd do them some t-shirt designs. So I'd have a rolling chassis, just needed a motor, and get that Roadster going. So Shapiris says, look, we'll get that Roadster going for you, but we want to know that there's at least one primer car, one primer 32 Roadster still on the streets. They always want the satisfaction, you know, there's one beater, whole beat up 32.
This is when they're building, right? This is when they're turning out nice cars.
Yeah, because they had to put up with these fucking fickle fucking people that had to have the 4 bars and all this shit, you know. They just hated this, and they just wanted real traditional hot rods. So I said, believe me, it's just going to be primer. So I was hanging around in punk rock circles at this time, see, and the punk rock people, you know, Melrose and Hollywood and Sunset just love that car. You know, I pull up in nightclubs and shit. You know, that car, it was the scene, man. That car was bitching. And the fenders had splits, and I just put a piece of metal with bolts holding it, you know, and it was this looked like an ancient shit box. So the car got an enormous reputation. It got really famous. People seeing it around LA. So a club named the Choppers were inspired by that car. My nephew Aaron was in the Choppers, and I found him a 35 Honda Coupe. Him and before that, him and his buddies were into mini trucks and Volkswagens and stuff like that. So I tried to turn Aaron on to a coupe. I thought he'll never do it. He's into this other shit, and he bought it. This started this whole crowd looking for old Fords. I started to shop. So I would be presumptuous enough to say that that old red oxide roadster started the rat rod thing. Now the rat rod term comes from my very good friend Gray Baskerville. And Gray, you know, when I'd go down to Ross in the 60s, I'd go down Hollywood Freeway one way and I'd see Gray Baskerville and that red roadster coming the other way from Pasadena and then coming back the other way when we pass each other. So he said he put 250,000 miles on that roadster, which is 10,000 miles further than going here to the moon. Everywhere he drove that damn roadster. And it got beaten up. So he'd have to park it off to the side. So he had a certain sentimental appreciation to rat rods that come and just spit in the face of these people that do these high-tech cars. So then this rat rod thing came, and it got bigger and bigger and more omnipresent and gigantic. It spread to Japan and Europe and Germany and France and England. And I'm stuck with this primered car, and I'm thinking, well, you know, I'm kind of tired of this primered car, you know, and I've got some aspirations, and I want to paint the thing like a redneck drag car, you know, like a race car. And the philosophy on a race car is, you're not interested in the antiquity of the body, you're trying to entertain people in the grandstand. So it's nothing but flash. It's recognition. And there's like a beautiful thing about this. There's like such a tremendous virtue of this. And it's like taking a beautiful World War I or World War II airplane and then putting this real ugly camouflage on it. And the camouflage is right. It's just as right as any rivet on that airplane, you know? And that's the way I felt about this paint job. It was the very paint job I hated as a kid on race cars. I hated it because it violated the lines of the car. The person that painted on there had no sensitivity to the lines of the car. You understand what I'm trying to say?
Absolutely.
And in my older age, I started seeing a virtue in this thing. And I thought, man, chartreuse and purple, you know, man, those would really work against each other. That thing would just really stick out.
You know, when you use the term lurid to describe that paint in the book, it's perfect.
I made so many enemies with that paint job. So many enemies. And you know what I wanted to do is I wanted to cherry the body out really nice, like I got a good Deuce roadster and fucked it up. You know, so I put all the original snaps and the holes for the side curtains and put the rumble seat back in it and cut the cowl vent back out so it worked. And then still put the tail lights in it so it could look like a car that functioned without fenders. You know, and put that paint job on it. And man, as I was doing that paint job, I was thinking, man, I don't know, I'm fucking this car up. And I'd go for moves, I'd go, man, this thing's bitching. Another time I'd go in the garage and go, oh fuck, what have I done to my roadster?
What did Suzanne think?
She liked it. She liked it. She always liked it. And, you know, I was getting mixed reviews on people. People were just hating the thing. You know? And then I realized, well, man, I just love the damn thing. You know, it's right. The paint job's right. The cheesy decals. I went a lot of trouble to find water-soluble decals, water transfer decals. And so that's about the story on that roadster.
So, and that you got, it was late 60s, 60, when you first picked the roadster up?
I picked the roadster up 68 for $200.
68, and then What about Suzanne's?
Suzanne got the sedan in 1973. She'll tell you about that. She'll have all the stories on that. And in '93, you know, as the prices went up, the prices were starting to climb on those 32s, 34s. But a millionaire named John Sarunian came into this thing. He was the guy that started Western Wheels. Multi-millionaire, for a while he was the chairman on the board at Rockwell International. So he started buying this stuff up, and his prices alone that he was paying, the prices just, they didn't go up like this, they went like that. So that was the beginning of the end right there. I got the stuff just in time. So I figured, well, you know, this was like about 88 or 89. I figured, you know, I'd like to get a 34, 33, or 32 three-window coupe. And I better do it before the turn of the century. I see this coming. So I looked for 5 years, and I followed so many leads, and so many things fell through. And then finally I picked up this one. And it was in bad, bad shape. The top was caved in, and the doors were hanging like elephant ears, and just the doors had been gutted inside, and it was a mess. I got it from a friend that made a running car out of it. He had everything, it had to be completely taken apart and everything realigned and redone again, and the rear end was sitting way too far forward. You couldn't put fenders on it, and so I took it all apart and had the body work done, and I bought it in '93. And I think I paid $11,500 for just the body and everything. I think when I got it, the thing, I just started hunting original parts. I wanted original parts. And it was like a heroin habit, you know, it's like I was $100 bills, just, and every time I'd buy a part, I'd set a record purchase, you know? If I bought something, it'd be the highest price I ever paid at the time. I bought a real original dash. I had to give $600 and something for it. I got that rim that goes around the top. You know, I think I had to pay $375 for that. It's just every little lever and mechanism that I bought that was original. You know, and then I got it. And then I guess about 1995 or '96, some guy called me up for back keys. He says, "I saw that car in Street Rodder. I'll give you $60,000 for it." And I said, that wouldn't pay for the time in that car, you know. So now I got my coupe, and so I'm set.
You're all set? Nothing else?
I couldn't touch any of this stuff now. I couldn't touch
yeah.
it. I couldn't touch it. And you know, I used to be so casual with that Roadster. I used to go downtown and just park it, and people throw garbage in it and stuff, you know. And now I got to figure out, where am I going? Where can I park it when I get there? You know. So it's a sad commentary. You know, they become $100,000 automobiles, and that's just very sad.
So what do you think nowadays with this, you know, and even the term rat rod is yesterday. I mean, people don't even, you know, you get hollered at for using the term rat rod at certain car shows and stuff. But what do you think of that culture now? And certainly juxtaposed with the whole, you know, the whole super high dollar trailer.
It's a wonderful thing. The rat rod thing is really a wonderful, wonderful thing. But they've run into what I thought I ran into 40 years ago. That's a famine on these bodies.
Mm-hmm.
You just can't get them. So these poor guys are down to finding late 30s off-brand pickup truck bodies. You know, shit I wouldn't have took to the, you know, wouldn't have used for a chicken coop. But the only logical next thing I could think of to build these cars is to take something like a '48 Ford Coupe and cut it down into a little coupe. It's the only way I could see these things having a future. Still being an open wheel, neat looking little vehicle. Like take like a '36 Ford trunk back sedan and cut it down into a little coupe.
Mm-hmm.
You know, still have the romance of it being an old car. Because there are no bodies to be had. They're just not to be had.
No, there really aren't. I've got a Model A sitting in my yard, Model A coupe that still waiting to be built, and I get contacted every week by somebody. I've got pictures of it up on, you know, on a MySpace page, and people contacting me all the time.
Yeah, that, I remember I had a bunch of Model A's and I paid $35 a piece for them. They were running cars. I bought a Model A truck, and the guy sent me across the road. He says, the guy's got a coupe over there, and I went and bought that one for $35. This was in '62. A running Model A for $35, and there were tons of them. Tons of them. It's a different story now.
Well, let's talk about your art and
Okay.
a lot of stuff that I looked at, obviously in your book, other stuff I saw online, lots of hot rods. What exactly? Well, literally and figuratively, what does the hot rod represent for the most part in your paintings?
Well, the hot rod.
And the hot rodder too.
The hot rod's an abstract thing. It's really abstract art, because what you do is you take an old passenger car that was never lived a rather short life. You know, like a 32 Ford is a new car for 2 years. It's a used car for 8 years, and it's a hot rod for 45 years. Now, which is the real car? You know, apparently the hot rod. And the hot rod is like an abstraction of this thing. It's like a cannibalized alteration that is proficient on the road, just as proficient as a modern car. You know, and that's always been my attraction to it. Is this abstract, wild nature of this thing that just keeps being revitalized. You know, and you can't go wrong with it. You can't paint it wrong. You know, you can't. It's just a matter of keeping it functioning. It's the only rule you have to go by. So I've been really attracted to that. You know, you're a lot younger than me, but I remember in the 50s, the upper crust or the snobs drove sports cars. Sports cars were the ruling class car. Because after the Second World War, all these guys come back with these sports cars, you know, and that become like the big snob thing. And in reality, the true American sports car is the hot rod. So it was always very pleasing to watch a hot rod outrun a sports car. And if you ever see pictures in old car magazines and stuff of T's and stuff and deuces made into sports cars, this is very poignant, because this is a slap in their snobby faces. These Ivy League college assholes that drove sports cars, and this was really an affront to them. An old beat-up thing was obviously a hot rod. To have these things win at sports car rallies was an enormous pleasure to me. Enormous. And it was for a lot of hot rodders. That hasn't translated over the years. See? But anyway, that was a factor.
And like, where do you find those things?
That's up to you.
Okay.
Wow.
You need to turn the camera on
Yeah,
if you want to.
I'll take care of it. We actually had just the right amount of time left. It was really funny. I was checking. I'm like, okay, we're good. I really appreciate it.
Wow.
Oh, no photography here? Okay.
Yeah.